Settlers and Survival, The Early Years of Colonial Georgia. Introduction. A new experiment in the New World. In the early 1730s, as the British Empire looked to expand its reach and secure its southern frontier in North America, a bold social experiment was set in motion. The colony of Georgia, the last of the original 13 colonies, was founded not by a royal governor or a group of profit-seeking investors, but by a board of trustees in London. Their vision was ambitious: to create a haven for England's worthy poor, a bulwark against Spanish Florida, and a model society free from the social ills that plagued other colonies. The reality, however, would prove far more complex and challenging than the trustees ever imagined. This is the story of Georgia's first settlers, debtors and non-debtors, English, Scots, Salzburgers, Jews, and others, who braved disease, a harsh climate, agricultural failures, and supply shortages. It is also the story of how the ideals of the trustees' plan collided with the realities of colonial life, shaping the destiny of Georgia and its people. The first settlers, a mosaic of hope and hardship, the visionaries, Oglethorpe and the trustees. The founding of Georgia was the brainchild of James Oglethorpe, a British member of Parliament and social reformer. Deeply moved by the plight of debtors languishing in English prisons, Oglethorpe and his associates envisioned a new colony where the deserving poor could start anew. The trustees for the establishment of the colony of Georgia in America, a group of philanthropists and politicians, were granted a royal charter in 1732, giving them authority to govern the colony for 21 years. Their plan was radical for its time. Georgia would be a place of equality, where land was distributed fairly, slavery and rum were banned, and the poor could become self-sufficient farmers. The trustees would govern from London, providing guidance and support to the settlers. Who were the first settlers? 1. Charity settlers, debtors and the poor. The original plan called for the resettlement of debtors from English prisons, but in practice, most of the first settlers were worthy poor, impoverished but skilled individuals selected for their potential to contribute to the colony. Each family received free passage, land, tools, and provisions. The trustees hoped this would relieve poverty in England and create a stable, industrious society in Georgia. 2. Persecuted Protestants, the Salzburgers and others. Georgia also became a refuge for persecuted Protestants from continental Europe. The most notable were the Salzburgers, German-speaking Lutherans expelled from the Austrian Principality of Salzburg in 1731. They arrived in 1734 and founded the town of Ebenezer, bringing with them a strong work ethic and religious devotion. Other groups included Swiss, Moravians, and various German Protestants, all drawn by the promise of religious freedom and economic opportunity. 3. Scots and Highlanders. Recognizing the need for military defense, the trustees recruited Scottish Highlanders, renowned for their martial prowess, to settle in the vulnerable southern frontier. They founded the town of Darien and played a key role in defending the colony against Spanish threats. 4. Jews and other minorities. In a remarkable act of tolerance for the time, the trustees allowed a group of Jewish settlers, 23 Sephardic Jews fleeing persecution in Portugal and Spain, to settle in Savannah in 1733. They quickly became integral to the community, with Dr. Samuel Nunes, a Jewish physician, credited with saving many lives during an early epidemic. 5. Adventurers and self-funded immigrants. Not all settlers were charity recipients. Some paid their own way, motivated by the prospect of land and opportunity. These adventurers added to the colony's diversity and brought valuable skills and resources. 6. Indigenous peoples. While not settlers, the presence and influence of indigenous groups, particularly the Yamakra, led by Tomochichi, were crucial. Early relations were shaped by negotiation and cooperation, especially in the founding of Savannah. 2. Hardships, disease, climate, agriculture, and supplies, the land of promise and peril. The trustees' vision of a prosperous, egalitarian society quickly ran aground on the shoals of reality. The first settlers arrived in a land that was beautiful but unforgiving, and survival was anything but guaranteed. 1. Disease and death. The subtropical climate of coastal Georgia was a breeding ground for disease. Malaria, yellow fever, and dysentery claimed many lives. Of the original 144 colonists, nearly 1 in 3 died soon after arrival. The Salzburgers, in particular, recorded harrowing accounts of illness and death during their first years. The first colonists faced endless days of hard work and bad water. They endured heat and mosquitoes and malaria. 2. Food shortages and agricultural struggles. Food insecurity was a constant threat. The settlers, unfamiliar with the local climate and soil, struggled to grow crops. The trustees had high hopes for silk and wine production, but these ventures largely failed due to unsuitable conditions and lack of expertise. The colony's early years were marked by hunger and malnutrition. 3. Labor and land restrictions. The trustees' ban on slavery and limits on land ownership, intended to promote equality, instead created labor shortages and stifled economic growth. Settlers found it difficult to clear land and cultivate crops without sufficient labor, and many chafed at the inability to buy, sell, or inherit land freely. 4. Supply shortages and isolation. The colony was dependent on supplies from England, which were often delayed or inadequate. Tools, seeds, and other essentials were in short supply, and the settlers had to make do with what they had. The journey to Georgia itself was perilous, with many dying or arriving, weakened by poor rations and harsh conditions. 5. Hostile neighbors and external threats. Georgia's location made it a target for Spanish attacks from Florida. The threat of invasion was ever present, and the need for defense shaped the colony's development. 6. High mortality and demographic challenges. By 1752, around a third of the original settlers had died, most from disease, malnutrition, or the rigors of the journey and settlement. The trustees' plan for a balanced, stable population was undermined by these losses. Third, daily life, adaptation and community building, a new society. Despite the hardships, the settlers persevered. Daily life was a constant struggle, but also a testament to human resilience and ingenuity. 1. Skills and labor. Settlers had to master a wide range of skills: clearing land, building shelters, hunting, fishing, and farming. Women played a crucial role, managing households, tending gardens, and caring for children. Community organization was strict, with labor divided and overseen by appointed leaders. 2. Social structure and governance. The trustees imposed strict rules: no slavery, no rum, no representative assembly. Settlers were expected to live in compact, organized townships for defense and social control. The lack of self-government was a major source of discontent. 3. Religion and community life. Religious observance was central, especially among groups like the Salzburgers. Churches and communal gatherings provided spiritual support and a sense of belonging. The diversity of the population, English, Scots, Germans, Jews, created a rich tapestry of traditions and customs. 4. Relations with Native Americans. James Oglethorpe's diplomacy with local tribes, especially the Yamacraw, was crucial. Trade and cooperation helped ensure the colony's survival, though tensions and conflicts were never far below the surface. 5. Economic activities. Agriculture was the backbone of the economy, but trade with Native Americans and attempts at silk production were also important. The Indian trade, in particular, provided a vital source of income. The realities versus the ideals of the trustees' plan. The trustees' utopian vision. The trustees' plan for Georgia was shaped by Enlightenment ideals and a desire to avoid the problems of other colonies. Their goals included creating a haven for the worthy poor and persecuted Protestants, establishing a society of small farmers, free from slavery and large plantations, prohibiting rum and large landholdings, governing the colony directly from London, with no local representative government, the collision with reality. 1. Governance and representation. The trustees' remote governance quickly led to dissatisfaction. Settlers felt powerless to influence decisions affecting their lives. By 1750, mounting pressure forced the trustees to allow a local representative assembly, and when Georgia became a royal colony in 1754, a more conventional government was established. 2. Land ownership and economic policy. Strict limits on land ownership were deeply unpopular. Settlers wanted the freedom to buy, sell, and inherit land. Over time, the trustees relaxed these restrictions, allowing larger holdings and more economic freedom. Slavery. The ban on slavery was intended to promote equality, but many settlers saw it as an obstacle to prosperity. Persistent lobbying led the trustees to lift the ban in 1750, fundamentally changing the colony's social and economic structure. 4. Alcohol, rum, prohibition. The ban on rum was widely ignored and eventually lifted. Settlers smuggled rum into the colony, and enforcement proved impossible. 5. Demographic and social composition. The trustees envisioned a homogeneous, industrious society, but the reality was a diverse, often discontented population. Many settlers left Georgia for other colonies or Britain due to dissatisfaction with the trustees' rules. V. Communities and settlements, the patchwork of early Georgia. Savannah, the planned capital. Founded in 1733 by Oglethorpe and the first group of settlers, Savannah was carefully planned with a grid layout and public squares. It quickly became the administrative and economic center of the colony, home to a diverse population including English, German, and Jewish settlers. Ebenezer, the Salzburgers' refuge. The Salzburgers, German-speaking Protestants, founded Ebenezer north of Savannah. Known for their industriousness and self-reliance, they built a prosperous community and the New Jerusalem Church, the oldest brick structure in Georgia. Fort Frederica, the military outpost. Established on St. Simon's Island, Fort Frederica was a military outpost defending against Spanish incursions. It played a crucial role in the colony's defense, especially during the Battle of Bloody Marsh. Darien, the Scottish Highlanders settlement. Founded by Scottish Highlanders, Darien was the southernmost and most vulnerable settlement. The Highlanders played a key role in defending Georgia from Spanish threats and brought a distinct cultural influence. Brunswick and Augusta, trade and expansion. Brunswick, established as a port city, and Augusta, founded as a military outpost and trade center, were important for the colony's economic and territorial expansion. 6. The end of the trustee era, adaptation and transformation. By the early 1750s, the trustees' experiment was unraveling. The realities of disease, labor shortages, economic competition, and settler discontent forced a series of concessions. The ban on slavery was lifted, landholding rules were relaxed, and local government was established. In 1752, the trustees surrendered their charter, and Georgia became a royal colony. The colony's transformation was swift. Plantations and enslaved labor became the norm, and Georgia's economy began to resemble that of its southern neighbors. The egalitarian society envisioned by the trustees gave way to a more stratified, plantation-based system. 7. Legacy, lessons from the early years. The early years of Georgia were marked by hardship, adaptation, and the collision of ideals with reality. The trustees' vision was noble, but perhaps naive in the face of the challenges of colonial life. Yet their experiment left a lasting legacy. Georgia's diverse population, English, Scots, Salzburgers, Jews, and others, created a rich cultural tapestry. The early emphasis on equality and philanthropy, though ultimately abandoned, set Georgia apart from its inception. The struggles and adaptations of the first settlers laid the foundation for the colony's later growth and prosperity. The story of Georgia's early years is a testament to the resilience of its settlers and the enduring tension between utopian ideals and the demands of survival. Conclusion: survival and change. The founding of Georgia was one of the most ambitious social experiments in colonial America. The trustees' plan, shaped by philanthropy, economic ambition, and strategic necessity, offered hope to the poor and persecuted. But the realities of disease, climate, agricultural failure, and political discontent forced a transformation that neither the trustees nor the first settlers could have foreseen. In the end, it was the settlers' ability to adapt, to learn from hardship, to build communities, and to demand change that ensured Georgia's survival. Their story is not just one of struggle, but of endurance, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of a better life in a new world.